Hello, welcome back to my Diploma Diaries. I can't quite believe we're already at the end of term 2, but this week I'm sharing the project for week 10 of the course, which was a set of silver and gold stacking rings. I didn't record the full making process of these this time because it's all been covered in previous videos, but I did want to highlight a couple of things that I did differently, particularly with regards to working with gold. As you may remember, I did struggle somewhat making the gold wedding band here, which was the project from week 1 of this term. It was the first time I'd ever worked with gold before, and it didn't work out too well for me for several reasons. This time I did things a little differently, and I'm happy to say I didn't encounter the same issues. Now for this set, I was working with 9 carat yellow gold again. It is a harder metal to work with, but financially, anything of a higher carat just isn't an option. This time the wire I was using was thinner, which obviously made things easier, but instead of measuring out the length needed and then bending the ends together as I would for a silver ring, I wrapped the gold wire directly around the mandrel and then used the saw to cut through where they overlapped. This meant that the ends were perfectly flush and the wire was already curved, so when it came to hammering it out after soldering, there was much less pressure on the join itself. Now the downside to this, of course, is you end up with excess metal either side of that join, which could be potentially costly, especially if you're working with gold. However, I will be using that excess for something else, so it's not completely wasteful, just a slightly more expensive way of doing things. I also took greater care to make sure that both ends of the join were heated equally and sufficiently when soldering to make sure that they were properly fused. And once again, I cooled the ring itself on a metal block rather than quenching it to make sure it didn't become brittle. So I'm delighted to say that this worked well twice, and I now have 2 more gold rings to add to my collection. The other 2 rings in the set were straightforward to make too, and although this was only my second ever tube setting, and in gold tube rather than silver, it actually went better than the first one, which was encouraging. I've gone for a mix of both shiny and satin finishes to create a really contemporary look, and I'm really pleased with how these turned out. So all in all, this was a satisfying end to another amazing term.